I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things certified financial planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And in today's podcast, I have a very special guest and a very old friend, and that is Warren Shute from Lexington Wealth. Hello, Warren.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Not sure I like the old bit, but something I have to live with these days.
Yeah, well, we've known each other a while, haven't we?
We have, yeah. Long time. I'm very excited to be on your show as well, by the way. I love what you're doing. I've listened to all the episodes. I've shared it. And I think it's a great thing you're doing.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind, very kind. So we are here to talk to you about all things certified financial planner related.
Right.
And I'm particularly interested in, firstly, you're sharing your journey of how you came across the CFP, but then also more recently, how it is helping you with your business, any particular aspects of it that are helping you build, a more robust business or, give that business some longevity and some checks and balances along the way. And then we're going to have time, because you are a media star as well. So we're going to have time during today's podcast to talk about all the things that you are doing on that front too, to help get the message of financial planning out there to the public too. So let's dive straight in right at the very beginning and ask you about, how did you come across the CFP and why did you decide to embark on your journey to become a certified financial planner?
Okay, so I think almost like cast your mind back to the late 90s, 2000. When I started my business originally, I did lots of seminars to attract new clients to the business. So these were either one-day educational seminars. They weren't sales seminars, they were educational seminars. So they're either one-day seminars or a whole weekend. So Friday night, Saturday and Sunday. And they would literally educate people on money, not financial planning, because I wasn't a planner at this stage, but just money and money management ideas. And at one of the seminars, an IFA was there. And it just struck me, why would an IFA go to a money seminar? You would expect this individual to know there was no rocket science here. This was for Joe Blogg, man on the street, lady on the street, who just needed to know better ideas about how to manage their money, about pensions, that kind of thing. So I sought this individual out and got to know him, went down to see him at his office stuff. And he's an incredibly nice individual. And he just used it. He just liked to learn and go to different seminars and things. And he took me to an LIA presentation. And it was at that LIA presentation, that's the Life Insurance Association, which was the predecessor, I guess, for some of your listeners, to the Personal Finance Society. I guess that'd be fair to say. And that's where I first heard Paul Etheridge speak. And it's when I heard Paul Etheridge speak, it was just completely different to what I was doing. I wouldn't say it's completely different, but it was just a different way of doing things that I had been doing it. And I was just taken back, and I just was in awe. And I just thought, okay, I need to become a CFP. And that was really why I decided to become a CFP on that journey, from listening to how he spoke and what he was doing.
And is it because the differences from what you were doing to, what you heard Paul talk about, were they because, he was talking about lifelong cash flow and perhaps, some of these extra questions and building, bigger, better, stronger relationships with, family units giving advice? Are those the real differences? But I guess you already had family units that you were giving advice to already, weren't you?
I don't think so. I don't think I did back in the 90s, in the late 90s, like that. So I started in 95, and I think I sort of came across Paul about 99, something like that, 98, 99. So at that stage, although we still delivered ethical financial advice, it wasn't financial planning, really. Yeah. We weren't really asking clients the deeper moving questions and looking at the broader, bigger picture. We were doing comprehensive work. We were looking at state pension and pensions and life insurance and things, but it wasn't really the bigger picture. I think it was more the cash flow and bringing everything together that really got me hooked and thought, oh, wow. It was an aha moment for me when I saw the cash flow slide. Any of you familiar with Presswood, you'll understand truth, that you understand you got the blue and the red. And it's just looking at that chart, those charts on the screen. I thought, this is a way of communicating it. I guess deep down, I'm very passionate about education. I'm very passionate about empowering people to make their own decisions. And I think that was a real light bulb moment for me to say, okay, there's a way here for people to be able to do their own thing, and for me to communicate things clearer to people.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the old Presswood, the first version of Presswood, pre-truth version that was, huge. This kind of giant spreadsheet, wasn't it, with so many sets of formula and tables of data at the end and all that kind of 80-page financial plans.
Yeah. And there was that. I guess that was the old DOS version, the very original version, stuff like that. But yeah, no, it was very inspiring because I think back then, financial planning in the UK is still fairly bespoke, unique. But back then it was even more so.
Yeah.
So for someone who had no CFPs around them and no financial planning experience or friendships to get exposed to it, I got a good exposure.
Yeah. And I remember Paul always saying things like, there's enough room for all of us. We could turn all the financial advisors in the UK into financial planners. And there's still, there are so many clients out there that we could all help collectively that we don't have to worry.
Absolutely.
He never worried about sharing, his methodology or the way that he gave advice or, right through to the cash flow systems that he pioneered the development of, did he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. He was so generous with his information and sharing. He would be until his last days when he was practicing, at all of the events, sharing his knowledge and information, stuff like that. So, he was a great advocate of financial planning and really championed it, along with some others in the UK. Really sort of, and it's nice to see. Particularly with the work, and I go back to what you're doing, Jackie, and others, of how financial planning is really growing as a profession now, I think, in the UK. So, it's nice. It's great to be a part of it. And I've loved every bit of it. Every single year, genuinely, every single year has got better. I really do love and enjoy being a financial planner. I really enjoy working with my clients. And it's been a great journey.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get on to your relationship with your clients shortly, but just sticking with your journey to CFP for a moment, tell us about, when did you do the CFP and what was the assessment journey like? I guess you've got some highs and lows, as we all have to share. So did you start on your CFP? It must have been 2000, was it? Or a little bit after that?
So I got my CFP in 2005, I think. Right. Casting my mind back, I remember it was a very tough period because I was running a firm on my own. I think I had one member of staff and I knew no other CFPs. And I do recall going through several submissions. I don't know how many I went through, but I know I didn't pass first time. I found it a very challenging experience, bearing in mind I'd gone through all of the CII exams. Chartered wasn't available, I don't think. I can't remember which way I got, chartered or certified. It was like a year beside each other. I think I got certified first and chartered the year after, because I think that's when chartered came out, about 2006.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And so I had my sort of advanced pensions and tax and trust exams and things. I kind of thought I knew what I was doing. But the beauty, and I use the word beauty without exaggerating, the beauty of this CFP is it allows you to be tested on how to display that information in a way you would communicate it with clients. Yes. It's not necessarily testing your ability to regurgitate information from a textbook. It's more testing your way of explaining that information to a client. So it was reflecting on it. It's hard because I think my emotions detach over time. So when I look back roughly 17 or so years ago. I can't remember how I was feeling, but when I look back, I think actually I was running the business with one person, and it was a tricky time because you're doing spinning so many hats. And I do remember thinking, cracky, was this going to go through? Let's just get this thing through. And I do think I went to visit you when you were in Bristol. I think this was for the CFP, because I remember you did some income tax. Yeah, we did. Yes, some tax calculations and the cash flow calculations and everything else, which was, I think that's probably after a first or second submission. I thought, actually, I need some help here just to make sure we get this done right.
Yeah. And I think that's, that's very common, reflects a lot of people's journey is, going through perhaps 2 or even 3 submissions, but that realization that the CFP is an application of the knowledge that you have, rather than, I can remember doing the old advanced financial planning exams with the CII, did my tax and trust exam, and there was a question, I couldn't remember what the answer was. I knew it was one of 2 options that I was rolling around in my head. So I just stuck down both answers and I still passed, even though one of them would have got 0 for. So, I had time to do it. But obviously with the CFP, it's not like that, because like you say, it's all in the round, isn't it? So by making a mistake in one part, it's having a knock-on effect elsewhere in your financial plan later on.
It's so comprehensive. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the reality of when you're giving advice to clients, isn't it? You can't write the right answer and the wrong answer like I did.
I like your idea, though. I should remember that for the next exam I do.
I wouldn't recommend it. I did get writer's cramp doing it. Okay, so let's move on and talk about, once you gained your CFP, then how did you use that to help you develop your business? So, you were still running a business essentially on your own, perhaps with one member of staff. Did that make you sit down and think, okay, I need to change my direction of what I'm doing? And that means, rebuilding it from the ground up, essentially.
Yeah, no, definitely did. So I think from probably pre-submission, we started acting more like financial planners as opposed to just giving financial advice. Looking back on it, it was very sort of naive or junior in its maturity. But the CFP kind of gave us a framework, a system, a roadmap that we could follow to allow us to deliver the experience to the clients. And it wasn't completely smooth to start off with, because you go through periods which might be slightly busier, and you might have sort of dropped out of it and things and not sort of followed the same process every time. Or I might have sat in front of a client who was, I thought maybe didn't want financial planning and maybe wouldn't necessarily delivered it. But I think as soon as I got the CFP, that was kind of like the line in the sand where I said, okay, well, look, this is what we're doing now. And I'm pretty confident to say, since getting the CFP, we've delivered financial planning in the process of the 6 steps, producing a financial plan, doing the planning with the client on screen, sharing the cash flow, and sort of using the questions to dig a bit deeper for the individuals so that they get better outcomes themselves.
And, doing the financial planning on screen for your clients, have you had any resistance to that? Do they love it? Does it appeal to a particular age demographic, or any kind of issues with any of that?
Well, it's just, I'll use a phrase that Paul used to use. It's just the way that we do it here. It's the same with the financial planning. We don't ask clients if they want a financial plan, if they want a cash flow. We just do the financial planning. It's just an assumption that that's the only option they've got. Yeah. So we find it's very engaging if you have a couple where the financial relationship is led by one of them. You tend to find it brings the other party into the relationship a bit more, because they can automatically visualize and see the graphs and the chart on the screen, as opposed to understanding the terminology or the numbers. Yeah. So does it appeal to, I think I think it appeals to them all, to be fair. I think the younger generation kind of expect it. It's a prerequisite that you're using software and you're going to do financial planning with that software. And it is quite nice to do it with me. And I think the more mature generation can capture a lot of information from an image or a visual very quickly, as opposed to going through line by line. Yeah. And I think it's also reassuring them, although this isn't the truth, but it's reassuring for them that software generally produces the right answer. Now, we know that software produces the answer, the data goes into it, but I think most people like the fact that, okay, we've got some software running this system here, this process that we're following, and I like that.
Yes. I guess it's more kind of educated guesswork rather than complete guesswork.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, we want to make sure that the assumptions, which is one of the first things we tick off with a client when we go through the process, make sure that they are reasonable and that they are fair and they understand them. And we sometimes will have feedback or challenge from a client of, why have we done that? Can we do this one? And we'll have a bit of back and forth and we'll agree on an assumption that we're both happy with. I wouldn't just use an assumption because a client's given it to me. But likewise, I wouldn't necessarily insist on the assumptions that we've used if a client has a reasonable reason for using something different. So get the assumptions ironed out. And then we go through the stages of looking at the net worth of the individual, their assets and their liabilities, make sure that they're happy with those, then looking at their income or their cash inflows over time, and then their cash outflows. Often spend a lot of time questioning some of their expenditure, because I think that's the key really of making sure that the data is as accurate as it can be. We're fairly confident that the asset values are correct and that the income's correct. So we've got the income from the accountant or the tax returns. We've got the asset values from the providers or the land registry. It's the expenditure that's the questionable bit. So we really spend a lot more time on the expenditure, making sure we're nailed down on that. And then we discuss the cash flow. Once the cash flow's up, that's really when the planning starts. So it's not just producing the cash flow. It's that saying, well, what if? You've told me you want to retire at state retirement age, but what if you retired earlier? Is that a thought? Is that something you considered? You say you like going back to this particular place. Have you thought about retiring there? Would you consider buying a property there before you retired? You just really start probing the individuals and just sort of saying, how many children have you got? Do you hope to privately educate them? Should we include that cost in the cash flow? And that's really, I think, when financial planning starts, as opposed to just producing the cash flow itself. It's really delving a bit deeper and prodding them to, we use the expression live life by design and not default. Really say, okay, let's design it. Let's design what you want this to look like. And then we can then sort of run some scenarios and stuff.
Yeah. And with the expenditure, do you ask your clients to submit detailed details of their expenditure, before you meet them? Or is that something you go through in the meeting?
Oh, no, before we meet them. So the process that we have is we would do an initial, if a new referral was come through to us, I'll do an initial call with them just to clarify with the individual what they're looking to achieve and to make sure that they're the kind of client we want to work with both now and over the years ahead. And to give them some kind of framework of what our expectations are. If they're the right fit, then we'll set up what we call a discovery meeting. This our discovery meeting, we're really looking more about them, discovering what's really important to them in life, what are their values, both around financial planning, but also about their financial planner. What's important to you about me? What are you looking for me to deliver to you? Because if their expectations of me are something that I can't deliver, then we best off not engaging the relationship straight away, as opposed to finding out 2-3 years down the line when I've upset them. Yeah. We'll then go through some idea of what their assets and liabilities are in the meeting. So I've got some kind of big picture level of what we're working with. And then they will send all that information in to us. So between then and that, we'll have an investment presentation. So we explain to them how we invest money and why the investment approach we've done. We found that's very good because it clears the air and avoids any ambiguity. So the client really understands the long-term principles around investments. And then we'll hold our planning meeting. So generally it's about 4 to 6 weeks after the discovery meeting. And during that period of time, the client sent all the data in. My team in the office have prepared the financial plan, the draft financial plan. And then in the planning meeting, we'll bring the software up on the screen and we'll do the planning with the client live on screen. And
Yeah.
what we found with remote working is it's actually improved things, if I'm honest, because the clients are sat there often with their iPad in their lounge or somewhere, very comfortable. And we're just going through the charts on the screen. And it's very little difference whether they would come into my office and I'd have it on a big TV screen in my office, sharing my screen that way.
Yeah. And that's really interesting how, the pandemic has helped people get to grips with, using their technology a bit more and, finding that actually, the expense, maybe the clients, sees the opportunity to visit you in person if they can on the way to somewhere else, or having a day out somewhere, being near the Cotswolds, maybe they go and visit family or friends in the Cotswolds, or go for a nice walk or something like that along the way. But actually it's not 100% necessary, is it?
It's not. So pretty much since 2000, we've always done meetings in our office. So clients have come into our office and they've traveled from great distances, down from Exeter. I think the furthest north is Newcastle. And like you said, we're near the Cotswolds, near Swindon. So it's a fair journey for some of them. Now we're able to deliver, I believe, the same service online. Yeah. So the clients can be sat at home, don't need to do that journey. And often it can be done a lot quicker as well, because I strongly prefer husband and wife, or the couple, to come in together as opposed to one of them, because at the end of the day, I hope to be working with them both for their whole life. So I want a relationship with both of them. And if one of them would pass away, I want to make sure there's continuity there and we know what's going on. Yeah. So we have both of them come in, often to arrange 2 diaries to take a half or a whole day out of their life is quite a big ask. Yeah. Now I'll have perhaps one individual at work in one part of the country and another individual at home or in their office in another part of the country. And we all click into a Zoom meeting and it takes 2 hours. My planning meetings generally around about 2 hours. And that's it. And it's done. So it's a lot more convenient for them. Yeah, definitely.
And how do you market your services? How do you attract clients?
Well, now we're in a fortunate position that we don't, but that's because of the maturity of the business. I think when a company gets to us, or a business gets to a certain size, the clients themselves willingly refer people to you. So you have a natural growth of individual clients. So we're not on any unbiased or advisor platforms or anything. Early in the years when I started the business out, I did it through 2 methods. One was educational seminars. So these weren't sales seminars. The one day was marketed, I think, around about 50 or 99 pounds, something like that. And then there was a weekend seminar. So these are educational seminars. So I'm kind of like educating individuals, teaching them information, and then they kind of want to willingly buy your products. So that was one method that we used for quite a long period of time, which was very, very successful. And the second method was what we refer to as centers of influence. So working with accountants or solicitors. Now, we particularly found accountants better than solicitors, but working with them so that they would then willingly refer the clients to us, and so we could help them achieve outcomes both in the accountancy side and the financial planning practice.
And that's really interesting that you talk about that, mention the accountants there, because certainly with my dealings with the ICAEW and the accountants I met in seminars meetings that I've run there, that some accountants would say, oh, well, I've sought out a financial advisor or a financial planner and I've kind of fell out with them because they don't do it the way that I do it. And so there has to be a bit of give and take in that, establishing those relationships with accountants. You can't just kind of go in and go, well, this is how I do it, can you?
Yeah. So up until fairly recently, we ran a joint venture with an accountancy firm. And it's because the partners at the firm, or 2 of the 3 partners of the firm, became clients of ours, and they saw what we did. So they'd experienced what we do. Yeah. And then they were willingly referring clients to us. And then they kind of cottoned on with, actually, hang on a second, we're giving money away here because we never paid a referral fee. So they said, well, why don't we set up a joint venture and run this as a joint venture? So we ran that for several years, which was very, very good. But I think the key really is getting the partners or the senior team on board as clients themselves, just so that they can experience what you do, as opposed to telling them. I think financial planning is one of those things that it's difficult to tell someone what it is you're going to do. It's far better for them to experience it, to go through the journey themselves, and then they get the aha moment, just kind of like what I did when I saw Paul speak on the stage all those years. I was like, I get it.
That's really interesting. And it's quite difficult, isn't it, when, that you talk in general to marketeers in general, and they say, you need an elevator pitch. If you're going up a couple of floors in an elevator and somebody says, hey, as the Americans do, hey, what do you do for a living or whatever? And you kind of go, I'm a financial planner. And they go, what?
It's
difficult to articulate, isn't it?
It is. And for a number of years, I've used, so that question, I think it's nice to have that elevator pitch, although I'm not sure I like the phrase, but that's the phrase that is used, you're right. It's just having something in your armory to answer. So when someone says, what is it you do? I just respond with, do you ever worry about money? And well, that's the kind of thing that we do. We help people clarify that and create a solution for the future. And it's just having a line that you can respond to, that you feel confident delivering without it sounding too corny.
That's a lot shorter than my elevator pitch, and I can imagine if I did mine, the doors would be open and the person would be walking away, and I'd still be talking.
Getting off at the wrong floor. Yes,
let me out. This woman can't stop talking. But yes, that's really interesting. So, and I guess these you're turning or have turned into a bit of a media mogul and a media star, as the saying goes. And has that come out? Your book, the work with the Sunday Mirror, has all of that work come out from your seminars that you were doing? That clearly you have a passion for helping people. How did the book and how did all the media work that you've been doing? How did that come about?
Well, the media work started back in '98. Before it. So I think it's one of your earlier guests, Farida.
Yes.
Said she was inspired by Alvin Hall's Your Money or Your Life show.
Yes.
So I was on that show. So that was the first TV exposure I got back in '98. Wow. And then Alvin and I built a relationship. So he wrote the foreword to the money plan. And then the money plan I got to a stage in Lexington where I was very fortunate. I have a great company. I really enjoy what I do. I have a fantastic team around me. And I thought, the people come into my office, although they're incredibly nice, they are all very, very nice. They're fairly affluent. Most of them are fairly wealthy. And I didn't grow up with money. And I just looked, I thought, you know what, there's a huge cohort of individuals out here who are missing this. Financial planning isn't just for the wealthy. Financial planning is for everyone. Yeah. And you can deliver profitable financial planning to people who have less money just as well as you can with people who have money. It's just that with people with money, there are more opportunities, there's more complexities to work with. And I just wanted to devise some kind of model to take, I use the expression, take financial education to the nation, take financial planning to the masses. And that's where the Warren Shute website came from. That's where the money plan came from. And then since the Your Money, Your Life show, I did a stint on Bloomberg. I think last year we was on the Tonight program. We've done radio work and things like that. And the outcome really is all about trying to get financial education out there, financial planning out there. So people aren't choosing funds like a commodity or a sweep, this fund over that fund kind of thing. They're really looking more about their spending. They're prioritizing spending, repaying their debt, and they're having a plan for the future where they're putting money away for their retirement. So I think society as a whole will be better for it. If we have less debt and more financial control, everyone wins. It's not really a lose-lose in any way. Yeah. And I kind of think, like Paul didn't worry about sharing his information with other planners so that they could grow their practices. These individuals, the more they're educated, the more likely they are to go and seek out a CFP. because they then say, okay, do you know what? I hear what Warren's saying, but I just need the confidence of someone to hold my hand to get me to do it. And that's really where it comes from.
Yeah. And I have to say, I've read the book. It's a great book. It is too. So
thank you.
It's and it's a fantastic achievement, actually, isn't it? That as a financial planning community, we can take, and so many financial planners do take the time to write books and to do pro bono work and to try and get that message out there that actually anybody can and should take control of their finances. It doesn't matter whether you have, lots of debt or whether you're a student. I remember a few years back, you did some work with some sixth form students before they went off to university, didn't you? Showing them how to manage their debts and sort out their finances and their expenditure.
Yes, I did. Yeah. So, and I love that. I've done work with children as young as 10 years old. It's the year before they go into secondary, so that must be 10 years old.
Yeah.
Young is 10 years old. That was for the NSBC Money Week, all the way up through to sixth formers going off to university. And I love the challenges that both ends of the spectrum bring. The youngsters, it's more about engaging with them, using terminology and language and analogies that will resonate with them, typically around sport or TV. And then with the sixth formers, it's making sure that you don't, you got to stay on top and make sure you engage with them and make sure that you are not being too traditional or too boring. So making sure you're speaking at their sort of wavelength. And so
you don't get the eyes rolling to the ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But this is the beauty of our profession. It's like if we were able to take, even if it was one day a month out of our diary and just said, okay, I'm now going to do this pro bono, I'm now going to go and do this other work and help some people out and do it this way. You grow as an individual because your speaking skills grow. And also when you teach something, your knowledge level goes from A to B to C to D. It jumps up. You become far more proficient in it. You understand it and you feel more confident with it as well. So it's a win-win. You're giving and helping others, but also you're growing as an individual too.
Yeah. And I can remember actually when I was at the CISI, I managed to twist your arm to come and talk to the staff about their own finances, didn't I?
Yeah. So, which was great. You didn't, twist my arm. I love doing it. This is the thing. You're very, kind to invite me along. What I did is I converted the money plan book into a 1-hour presentation. And then that presentation, I generally go out and deliver to companies, associations, groups, who want to listen to it. And it's been great. You had some real sort of big names of companies who have taken on board and who've had me out and to present to them. And Nationwide Building Society had me running there for, I think, nearly 2 years. A really long stint going in, speaking to small groups, pretty much once a month, I think. So, it's fantastic. And the great thing about that is we also tweak the money plan presentation to the younger generation. So those that were maybe sort of 18 to say 25, 20 something, so year old. So they were less focused on the retirement and maybe the debt repayment. They were more focused on getting the first house and managing your money and that kind of thing. Yeah. So the money plan is based on the financial planning, the CFP principles that I run Lexington on, the sort of 5 areas that we cover. And it's not that I take anything out. I just maybe emphasize other areas more. And I think that brings it back to the CFP. You don't sort of not do something for somebody. You just maybe don't emphasize it as much as you would somewhere else, because somebody might have a bigger need for retirement planning. Others might have a bigger need for protection. Others might have a bigger need for debt repayment, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's specific to them. That's what financial planning is all about, isn't it? It's about them, not about us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It's but it's great asking individuals, whether it's face-to-face at a meeting, whether it's in a seminar environment, deep, meaningful questions. How do you want to live the rest of your life? What needs to happen? Questions that really sort of disturb them and get them to think is a really good rapport builder. One of the best questions you can ask an individual is, tell me what's one of your earliest experiences of money? What was it like? Give me a good experience. What was a bad experience that you had with money early on? Asking those questions is a huge rapport builder with individuals, but also gives you a lot of insight of what they're like as individuals too. And really can differentiate you being a financial planner over an advisor, just a product specialist, really.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite questions is what was your financial situation and relationship when you first met, if you've got a couple there?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I don't ask that.
We quite often find, or I used to find, not anymore obviously, but when I was giving advice, I used to find that commonly that one client out of the two, one of them would be fairly affluent and the other one would be in debt. So the affluent one had paid the debts off of the other one. So that led to an extremely interesting conversation about also the reasons why they were taking actions, why the one who was in debt perhaps was more cautious over the longer term, because they were perhaps a little embarrassed that their other half had paid their debt off. So it led to all sorts of, more in-depth conversations just by asking that one question.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's like a power dynamic as well there, isn't there? When one person pays somebody else's money and things like that. But also, if you're listening to this and you are training to become a financial planner, or you're at younger stages of your financial planning career, never worry about questioning why a client wants to do something, because you then go down a level, you go a bit deeper, really understanding their sort of motives, their drives. So if the client says, I want to start doing this, that, and the other, putting more money into a retirement fund or starting an ISA or something or whatever, taking out life insurance, find out why. What's their driving motivations behind that? What's important to them behind that? Because you're building deeper relationship with the individual, but you're also finding out their driving forces, what's important to them. And you, with your skills and your knowledge, might know better ways for them to achieve that.
Yes. Yeah. And quite often clients come, or used to come to me anyway in the past, with a particular problem saying, I need to put some more money in my pension, like you say. And actually, they were worried that, in past generations, their parents didn't have enough money and they lived on the breadline when they were growing up, and they wanted to ensure that they didn't have the same experience when they got to retirement. So there are those hidden drivers and those biases that we come to meetings with.
Yeah, there are. No, definitely. Because we're creatures of our environment, aren't we? And if we've grown up in an environment like that, we're at a young age, we're very influential. And we carry those things through our adult life and into our relationships. And that's why relationships as couples are so tricky, because you've got two different backgrounds merging together, ways to manage money and such like. And, getting relationships and money together is a real key thing. It's, really important.
And you also have Lexo as well, don't you?
I do, yes, I do. So Lexo is an online investment platform, and it was developed principally for the readers of the money plan, or people who use the Warren Shute site. So my business is set up I have two companies, Lexington Wealth, which is our regulated firm, which gives the financial planning advice, and then a separate business, which is Lexington Associates, which does all the education side. And that's what Warren Shute is run through, and all the seminars and the books and things go through. And what I was finding is that I'd having a lot of individuals who would want to invest money, but it wasn't necessarily right for them, or they didn't want to buy a financial planning experience. So rather than allow them to go off and just buy the next best hot fund from an online provider, we put together a number of 10 portfolios, which would represent broadly what we would use within Lexington. And they could then buy them online using the Transact platform. So we were happy that they were buying a investment solution that we were happy with, and they were able to do it online easily at a low cost.
And I guess that, it's a double plus, isn't it? Because they're learning by reading the money plan. They're doing their investments, kind of keeping control of their finances and their investments. And then as their pot grows, maybe they become transfer over to Lexington Wealth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm very lucky. We've taken on end of last year a brilliantly intelligent and bright young man called Lewis, and he's joined Lexington, and it's a great way for him, once he's an associate planner at the moment, and part of his contract, as it were, that it would be that he would get the CFP. And once he's CFP and he starts seeing clients, there's a great pool of individuals then that he can start working with who are going to have less complex needs. Yeah. So they're going to challenge him less, so he can build his confidence, understand what's going on, still do a fine job, but he's not going to be challenged with big complex needs initially. But you're right. So there's that pool there that he can work with.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have come nearly to the end of our interview today. Warren, it's been so exciting to talk to you after all this time, getting you on the podcast. But let's just bring it back to the CFP, because we know that there are lots of people out there who are thinking, right, in 2022, I am going to embark on doing my CFP. And I just wondered if you have any tips or any words of wisdom or encouragement that you could offer, perhaps to people who are going through it now, but also those people who are sitting on the fence going, not sure whether I should do it.
Okay. So I think it's a given that I'm going to say you need to do it. Okay. So I don't think I need to say do it, because if they're listening to this podcast, you're almost bought the idea that you want to do it, because this is a podcast on CFPs, right? Yeah. I think the key really is to be a financial planner, act and do financial planning. So if you're in an environment where you're able to do this, actually do financial planning in your day-to-day work. So start looking at things in a way that a financial planner would do things. The second thing that I would say, which I think is really essential, and it was told to me, is to do your own financial plan. It's the best place you can start. Do your own financial plan. When I did my first financial plan, I think back in like 1999, something like that, I wasn't married. I didn't have children. And I put into the plan that I'd get married and that I would have children. And they were called Ollie and Isabella. They were in the plan. And today I have two children who are Ollie and Isabella. Yeah. So, this thing does work. And I update my plan every year. So as financial planners, we're still doing financial planning on ourselves. So I'd say, another key thing would be to do financial planning and to do your own plan. And then I think the third thing I'd probably leave you with is to always be a lifelong learner, to continue learning, get education. So the CFP is a natural progression in a world of commoditization. If you look at everything going online, people buying funds, this and the other, the thing that I believe won't be commoditized is the relationships. And people, particularly with complex needs, are going to want a professional individual to help them make good financial decisions. That, and also bear in mind that the accountancy world had become very commoditized as well. And that the man of affairs, as the expression used to be used, was an accountant. I often get most of my clients ringing me up for all manner of different lines of advice or support or help, whether it's a relationship they're going through or a house change or sometimes gifting money to their children. There's a huge value in being a CFP. So by being a lifelong student, doing your CFP, but also going to conferences. I've learned most of the things I have probably from other financial planners sitting down, having drinks and stuff like that. And I'd say the CISI Financial Planning Conference is a great place to go to meet with other financial planners, learn what they're doing, learn from good speakers, and also let your hair down and enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Great advice. Warren, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to other people's points of view about different things, all relating to our wonderful financial planning profession. If you know anyone who might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, please pass on our details to them. So that's it from me. Join me again next time when we'll be talking all things certified financial planner related, and also dropping in on our new entrants to the financial planning profession. Bye for now.